So my name is Danny Ferguson. I am the Community Engagement Coordinator for Greater Vancouver Youth Unlimited. We have a program called Creative Life that I help coordinate in our Langley area. And so art is a way that we can kind of make some of the invisible things that are going on inside of us come out and be visible. And this is one of the reasons why people get frustrated with art so often, is because they feel like whatever is inside of their head doesn't come out onto the paper. And so with a project like what I want to show you here today, it is possible to start to engage in just some simple, basic, easy moves that you already know how to do and turn them into works of art that you're proud of. Now, if you have the masking tape, we're going to put tape down. It's going to be our first step. The other tool that you will need is an ink pen, and that's what I use to do all of the scribbling, all of the black lines throughout this piece. Okay. Then I used colored pencils. Now I've got 3 here that kind of represent the tree, the sky, and the tree trunk. But you can see that I used many different colors. And having more colors just kind of brings more of that abstract shape out of it. So you're going to reuse them. I don't know what it is that you have at home for different colors. It doesn't have to be colored pencils. It could be markers. It could be crayon. And then this is just a pencil sharpener which I need going along as I make the art. So one thing I'll say is I can't show you how to recreate this image exactly, because every image that you create in this manner of scribbling comes out differently. So we're going to scribble out a grid, and then we're going to take our grid and then we are going to put an image into our grid. I'm going to say off the bat, the more detailed you want your picture to be, the closer you need your scribbles to be. The less detailed and more abstract you want your picture to be, the bigger spaces that you need. Whatever the case, there's no right or wrong, but if you come up to the finished product and it doesn't feel like it's as detailed as it could have been, or you're disappointed, and you try it again, just scribble closer together. And if you're finding this was a really frustrating experience and you found like you didn't want to color all these individuals little shapes a different color, then go with a bigger swoops and don't cross over quite as often, and you have a looser scribble. So I'm going to now get us to a clean sheet of paper. Like I said, I'm just using this as a guideline for my quarter page, partly because I want to have nice straight lines, but you could measure this out as well. Or if you've got a good eye, you can just eyeball where the tape will go. So now this is my canvas area, and we're going to do all the art inside this area, and we're not going to worry about if it bleeds over onto the tape, but we don't want it to get into this edge outside of the tape, if at all possible. If it happens, again, we're kind of experimenting. But you can see here with my finished product, it almost looks like it could be taken out and put into a picture frame with a natural mat around it. You want to kind of do the same thing. So now you've got your tape down, you just need to get your pen and start to just go for it here. So we're going to scribble. You can stop and start however you want. If you want one continuous line, I think that's kind of fun. Just kind of just releasing your inner child. This scribbling portion is done. Now, like I said before, you could basically draw any object or shape that you want in this square. And I encourage you to try different things. But what I am going to do is I'm going to duplicate, for the most part, what we have on this front page. And so to do this, is I kind of need to start looking for shapes. So if I'm going to do a tree again, I need to have some sort of ground level, right? Ground level. And here I did a tree trunk, and then I had the tree roots kind of come out. And then I kind of tried to think in my mind of having some sort of circle and a trunk shape that would attach the two between the ground and the tree. So I'm going to do the same thing here. If I can find, I see a line here, and now normally I wouldn't need to do this, but I'm going to darken some of these lines up so that you can kind of see what I'm thinking in the midst of this. Now these are lines that are already on the page, and I'm just finding things that I think will make good borders for what it is that I am trying to do. When I'm doing a tree like this, again, like I said, I'm looking for something that can work as the ground, and you can see that this shape, when I was looking, yes, I had something that started very small here and got bigger on this side. With this one, it's quite high up on this side. It goes down, swoops way down, and comes back up, and the tree trunk has a real dynamic shape to it. Whereas this one is more of that traditional kind of straight sides. This one is much more curvy, but I'm following the same basic principle. I get a tree trunk, the ground, and then I've actually taken the tree up into branches that are kind of going out in either way. I've done that here and here. Now I'm going to know that I'm going to need to have my tree, can't be a complete circle, but it's probably going to come through here when it's a tree like this. I'm looking for things that can work as leaf shapes in my scribbles that are there. I can see all sorts of things in this, and this is why you don't have to be confined just to trees. You could draw faces, you could draw your favorite superheroes, you could draw, like my son wants to try this project with me, and he is going to try to do Pikachu, and I think that's an excellent idea. Now you can see here I'm going under the tree branch line. Just as I did on this piece, the tree branch went up, but I'm letting the leaf line come below the bottom. I need the top half of my tree branch, and I am just staying true to my original lines. Now you're done with the pen. Now you can sketch out something like that, or you can keep it in your mind's eye. With this, we want to have sharp pencils because we're working in pretty small areas, and if it bleeds over, that could be frustrating. And I'm just going to start to add blue into any of these shapes. So as you can see, I'm going to fill those shapes in, but I want you to see that I'm looking for shapes that already exist in my scribbles. And so scribbling, I said, is a skill that we all learn when we're young. Okay? And another skill that we learn soon after that is how to color in the lines. And so this piece can actually be a combination of the two. Scribbling outside of the lines and just being freeform, and then coloring in those spots as if you have just made your own coloring book. It's de-stressing because it forces you to be focused on something that's different than your norm. It connects your body with your mind because they have to be cooperating. Now all I'm doing here is I'm just kind of trying to evenly space this color, a different color blue now. So I've used, this is now my fourth different blue color. Right now I'm just sticking to doing one color per shape, and trying not to bleed over into any of the other shapes. And like I showed you in my original sample, is I didn't just stick to blues. I also added some grays and some light purples in there as well. And that can just give the sky just a little bit of texture. So I've got a purple, add that in here too. Continuing on, got a little bit more gray here. Gray is fine because at least where I live, our skies are often more gray than they are blue. Oh, I'm kind of running low on different shades of gray and blue here. This will be the case where I start to cover over multiple areas at once and fill in more areas, and it just depends on how detailed of a piece you want to end up with. Okay, I kind of am starting to get a grasp of what's going on here, and I think that there's enough differences in color now that I'm going to take the rest of these shapes and just do them all as one now. Now there's lots of empty white here, and I feel if I fill it in too much with the same color there, it's going to be distracting when the rest is so checkered. So I'm just going to add a few others in. I'm not even really paying attention, just grabbing random ones. I'm keeping this one separate because I do want to do the majority of what's left in that color. There we go. Sky is complete. These blues and grays are done. Now let's see how many I used. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different shades of blue and purple for the sky. We're going to move into this tree, and just like I did with the sky, and just start filling in random shapes that catch my eye as I go. I was going to put more of the darks, so I put more of the darks within the center of a tree and a little bit lighter as I went out, but you can see there's still some dark ones here and there, and I felt like that made that tree feel like it had some depth to it. In looking at this color that I'm using, because it is darker and it's more of that olive color, I know that I'm going to want to use this in the ground portion of what's going on. In that last piece I had a root that came through the top section here. On this piece, I don't see a spot where I'm going to be able to put a root, and so I'm going to make sure that I have a lot of this darker color, because I'm going to feel like it's going to be kind of the shade color, you know, sun kind of coming through the leaves. I picture the sun kind of coming through the leaves, and we're going to have a kind of a rippled dark section throughout the grass as we encounter shadow and light scattered on the ground. This becomes entirely way more simple if you only have a few colors. It becomes a lot more complex when there's lots of multiple colors. This is the majority of the project now, is you've seen what to do. We're just going to color different color shapes into our scribble marks, and then as we go we're going to end up with this. Now I'm going to start going over multiple shapes, and part of that's just for time. Tree is done. We're going to move into the tree trunk. I am ready to show you the next steps. Now it is a little tough to see, so I'm going to put a real bold black line around these spaces to put some good definition of what that original scribble line is. I'm just following that scribble line So again, it's just the scribbles. I'm not adding any new lines in the midst of that. It's just really interesting to see where this art has taken us. Right, and now I'm going to go around this tree here. So you can see this marker draws a real thick line. You might not have something that does a chisel tip like that, and so you're just going to have to do this multiple times with your regular fine tip marker or Sharpie. I would recommend getting really bold around these edges because it really helps bring the distinction and the pop feel off the page. Otherwise, it just kind of blends and bleeds into one. As a lot of these colors are, even though some are blue and some are green, it just they kind of can bleed into each other until your eye can't really distinguish. Things like, oh, that's not a tree, it's just a bunch of random lines. And so we're just giving it definition for our tree here, for our brain to be able to see this tree. So there we go. I actually think this bottom line could be even a little bit more thick there. And there we have it. The drawing is done, the artist piece is done, and for the sense of completion, we're going to take the tape off. So, crumple that up there. And second one, see that nice crisp line? We went from all the scribbles on the top and the bottom, and we colored outside the lines, and that was fun. And now we're just bringing it back into control, back into a finished piece by giving it that sharp edge. So it's just about scribbling and coloring, and there we go. So here was my first version with real tight lines, lots of condensed graphic, and this one with looser lines, bigger spaces, but you can see we were able to still make something that resembles a tree in the midst of that. And then one of the most important things you can ever do in art is to sign your work. So sign here on the bottom. And there we have it. A scribbled art masterpiece. Can't wait to see yours. Please send them in on Instagram or Facebook or whatever social media. Tag me in it, or just add the tag hashtag YU Langley, and can't wait to see what it is that you've come up with on your own. Peace, my friends.